years, Pencil has been the dominant cooler and backline weapon, and no matter what happens, it seems like that just won't change. But August 2025 might be the first time it didn't get the most relevant tournament results.
That Rattler's got nothing on the E-liter there.
Out of nowhere in SWS, a team with an E-liter managed to get second place. This is probably the largest Splatoon tournament of the entire year. But that wasn't a win, of course. A little bit later, the weapon manages to get 4,000 X power in solo queue, a feat that is incredibly rare. And right after that, it won an area cup. Done by the same group, in fact, defeating Lobster, who is currently dominating almost every area cup. Which, alright, some pretty good results in Japan, but you know how it is. Usually these are just one tricks in Japan who do it, and we're not really gonna see the West do it. Except we did. In Sendu Q Season 8, the team that won the tournament, PXG, won with an E-liter composition. What the hell is going on? The only change E-liter got in the most recent patch is a minuscule wave breaker buff. There's no way that's what shifted things, so what's happened to allow E-liter to be in such a good spot, where it might not be better than Pen, but it's the most competition the weapon's probably ever gotten? Let's take a look, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoy. So first off, what makes E-liter good? Well, it's kind of obvious. It's the longest range one-shot charger in the game. In fact, it is the only weapon in the game to actually outrange Pencil. And that's really its main claim to fame. It's pretty good at bullying that weapon out of open sightlines, an area where normally it sits relatively uncontested. On top of that, you know, one-shotting someone across most of the map is pretty good in general. That's pretty strong. Now, Liter does have trade-offs for this. It's slow, it's ink hungry, its special is mediocre, even if it's probably the best weapon for it, since you really don't want to be located against an E-liter of all options. But I'd argue that none of those were the main problem. It was still able to do its job effectively, and if anything, Splatoon 3 is a pretty good game for it. There is no chainable HP like Splatoon 1 or 2, and a lot of the displacement specials are things that E-liter can fight back against. It can headshot crabs, or get rid of Trizukas, or even fight off Zipcasters. Tenna missiles really serve as the only guaranteed way to make it move for a bit, and that has a much more limited output even on the new Splattershot Pro. However, I think E-liter's big issue for a while hasn't really been E-liter, and mostly been, what on earth do you run with it? See, for a while, the staple weapon composition is Pencil, some supportive weapon that paints the map, and 2 Slayer weapons that typically don't paint very well. If you substitute your Pencil for an E-liter, not only does your support pretty much have to exclusively be the NZAP 85, or you're going to try a coolerless comp, which coolerless leader hasn't really ever worked out, or you're gonna have to sack something else. If you run Zap and another support, you're not gonna have a whole lot of fighting power, and if you run double Slayer, you're not really gonna have a good amount of paint on the floor, given that E-liter obviously isn't keeping up with Pencil's level of turf output, which means no matter what, the E-liter comps just didn't really seem to be fully stable. There would always be some hole that could be exploited in them, and that was until the recent meta shifts. I think by the time we got to 10.0, there were 4 meta shifts that made it a lot easier. The first one is Pen being weaker. Obviously, Pencil getting 220p and less paint output put its coolers more in line with other supportive options, given that E-liter is basically forced to run with another supportive option that obviously benefits its comps. 2 is more fighting focused supports. The trend in the most recent patch has been trying to pick options like Dooley, Mini Spotling, or Vanilla Dreadringer, for instance. Options that'll end up going in or taking more space and attention in exchange for generally weaker paint or weaker entry tools in Dreadringer's case. This means that typically, Pencil compositions have a little bit less paint and a bit more of a fighting focus than they did before. This is pretty good if you're an E-liter team, because the E-liter is also going to be more fight heavy and is pretty good at punishing these more aggressive weapons by controlling open sightlines. And of course, the last factor of this is NZAP. A lot of top players have been speculating what the best support is right now, and typically it's the fighting ones that are doing better better right now, but I think one I see talked about a lot is mini spiraling. I mean, it can do 30 plus damage, has a high strafe speed, and really good paint and special output, comboing off of a lot of other options. However, NZAP also does this, and Zap has been subtly getting buffed in the background, becoming faster and doing more reliable damage. It's actually pretty good at holding attention for a while because it's a pretty tricky weapon to track down, and even one of the shots from that weapon combos very well with other fighting options. So now we have a metagame where more fighting focused supports are doing better, where Zap can keep up a little bit more with cooler output, and where comps conveniently don't require as much paint, which means there's a chance to finally solve this problem. And that's by just running the normal double midlines you usually see with Pencil. This would either be Splatana Stamper, preferably the Booyah one, Mint Decapitator, Slosher, and S-Blast. This composition of fighting weapons does depend a lot on the Zap for paint, but again, the gap between that and a typical Pencil comp is a lot lower. Your fighting power is obviously going to keep up, and if anything will be slightly better since you have the E-liter, and another nice part about this is all of these weapons come with a form of painting special to help make up for that weakness. And of course, all of them combo with the single end Zap bullet. Is this definitely closer to a traditional Pencil comp? Absolutely, but fighting it with E-liter is still a lot more difficult. On top of being able to bully Pencil like I already mentioned, E-liter is just a very extreme weapon. It forces players to play outside of open sight lines, and it forces more of a dependency on specials to move it out of the way, unless if you can find corners or places to move where the E-liter can't shut you down ahead of time. And again, that's an area where current comps are lacking a lot more, but it is where I feel the main way to counterplay the weapon is. If we look at SWS, the main thing we saw counterpicked against that E-liter was switching the Pencil over to Rapid, something that doesn't get as many coolers but can fight a lot more, and opting to run multiple supportive options, like the Zuka Mini and Splash together, giving you a higher output of specials that can force the leader back, while you keep a high amount of mobility and chip damage from the Rapid to be able to push in and play fast when needed. Being able to cycle between playing for specials, but having enough of them to get them quickly and cycle back into the aggression. Overall, I think that E-liter meshes much better with traditional comps, and a lot of Pencil players are Charger players who could probably switch to it. But with that being said, I do think it's still going to be pretty rare. We don't have a whole lot of end zaps, and I feel like the appeal of E-liter isn't high enough to where a bunch of people will be swapping to it, which is fine. What I do think though, is that the shifts in the metagame have allowed it to be a viable option. If you're someone who wants to push E-liter and think you can hit the shots necessary to win, then well, it's basically proven that you can at this point. It's cool to see more competition in a role that's desperately needed it, and I'm curious to see if the results will keep up in the future. Thanks for watching.
Leader is definitely going to drop left side on opening.
Yeah.
I see him going.
Yeah, he's watching.